Hi, friends. This is Dr. Arpita Gupta Dipalma, and you're listening to my podcast, From Pissed Off to Poised. This show is for busy women physicians and professionals just like you who are ready to take control of their emotions while learning how to excel in juggling all the things they are responsible for in life. It's for overextended mamas who are trying to figure out how to work smarter, not harder. It's for multitasking women who are tired of playing the role of the angry and resentful air traffic controller, who simply want to learn how to create a life that is more calm, intentional, and joyful for themselves. My goal is to help you learn how to eliminate the overwhelm and maintain your composure in high-stress situations that you face with the demands in your day-to-day life. Because I get you guys, this was totally me. You are not alone. I invite you to embark on your journey of transformation with me. Enjoy the listen. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of From Pissed Off to Poised. Today I'm excited because we are going to shift towards building more awareness and intentionality with our time, how we use our time. We're going to shift from being more reactionary and maybe angry with the urgency to being more reflective and determining what things we want to keep in our life and what things we might be willing to kind of let go of. Just to recap, the reason I'm doing this, the reason I shifted into time management for the second half of this podcast series is because I really, when I started doing this work, had this aha moment of noticing that my anger a lot of times was sparked by this feeling of urgency. I didn't like feeling like I was being pressured to get things completed. And rather than feeling that urgency, I would jump to irritation or anger or resentment. And so for me, it makes complete sense why I'm doing some time management content here on this show, because that was one of my major activators. And I think if we all stop to reflect and think about it a little bit, especially if we're busy mamas, why do we get so irritated? Because we're juggling all these things. We believe we have so many things that we have to do. And when our perfectly cultivated schedule doesn't work out the way we wanted, or the kids throw a wrench into something, or more fires pop up in other areas in your life, it tends to irritate us because it keeps us from getting done the things that we wanted to get done. At least that's how I felt. And so for me, when I realized that was one of the main sources of my frustration or anger, I could start to make some shifts to work on that. And so today's episode is going to start with the first step, as I mentioned, even with the anger, which is building awareness. So we're going to build awareness around how you are currently spending your time, how you may or may not like the way you're spending your time, and how you would ultimately love to spend your time. What's your dream schedule look like? How are we going to build that? How do we put all the things that you have on your mental to-do list out on paper and in a calendar so you don't have to worry about it anymore? It's not an energy suck from your brain. So this is what we're going to talk about today. And I really am excited about it because this was a game changer for me. And now I also want to add that I really didn't have a lot of trouble with time management. Like, I'm a very organized person. Even before I started doing this work with coaching, I had a weekly calendar system. I would be checking it every week. So this Thursday timeout concept that I teach, I was actually doing before I discovered coaching. And one of my ahas was realizing that most people don't have that basic skill set. Some people do, but many people don't. And for me, it was unfathomable to even consider living my day-to-day life without having some sort of a go-to of what needs to be done and what the deadlines are. So learning and starting to recognize that sometimes people need help with just the basics was important. And contrarily, for me, like I said, I've been doing it for quite some time, but there were areas that I definitely could make changes to improve on, because what I realized was many times I wasn't being kind to myself. Even though I had the calendar and I had the schedule and I had a system in place, I wasn't doing it in a way that was realistic and kind. And so this is what we're going to kind of talk about in the next couple of episodes. And I hope you really, really enjoy it. So before we get into the how of managing our time and making it more systematic, I think it's essential to understand where your time is currently going. So I want you to think about your average day or week and think about what exactly it looks like. Is it that chaotic mess like we talked about? Like you don't even really have a calendar. You're just kind of going through the motions each day. Is it a blank slate where you kind of figure out in the heat of the moment what needs to be done most urgently? Are you a little bit organized with regards to having a calendar, but not really always getting things done or not honoring it? Or do you pretty much have a badass system in place that you're following, but you still can't seem to fit the other things in that you want to fit in your life? This is where we need to start with the awareness step, where you can kind of figure out what is truly consuming your time in the current present day. And this will allow you to have more clarity about what's working and what's not. So here's your first challenge. I want you to take an inventory of your day and maybe even your week. What tasks fill the hours of your day? Are they aligned with what you truly want to do and value? Or are they simply the loudest, most demanding fire that's popped up in your life for that present moment? We're not going to judge how it is. We're not going to judge how you're currently working. All we're going to do is think about what we're doing so we can start to create a foundation for making a change. And a big piece of this is mindset, okay? Because the mindset that you have in confronting the current situation is going to be super important. How you identify yourself often determines how you're going to show up. So if you're always finding yourself saying, I'm so busy, it almost becomes like a badge of honor for yourself in your life that I'm just a busy person, right? We think that when we say I'm so busy, sometimes we think that this means that we've got so much going on. We're very important. We've got all the things to do. And it makes me feel valued or have that self-worth because I have my plate being totally full. But in actuality, the truth is we oftentimes label ourselves as being busy as a mask of inefficiency. We use it as a label to say, hey, I've got so much going on. And it kind of is an explanation for why I might not have gotten to X, Y, and Z. So notice if you're doing this. Notice if it's automatic for you to say, I'm so busy. Or if people ask you how you're doing, oh, it's so busy. Hey, do you want to do this? I wish I could, but I'm so busy. I want you to notice how often you say that and if it's really true. Another area I want you to kind of notice is if you're always staying late or putting in extra hours after hours if you're working. A lot of times we think that our dedication to putting out fires and staying late and finishing the last thing is a sign of our dedication to the work, our vesting in the company or the job, or our commitment to the people that we're working with. And I want to offer that it might also be a sign that your time management skills might need a little work. When we don't manage our time, we're not managing our mind. And if you're not managing your mind, it's impossible to show up as your best self. We have to shift this narrative. And we're going to start with making a couple of commitments to ourselves in order to do so. Number one, I want you to honor your word to yourself. Okay, I want you to notice how often do you make an appointment with other people and tell yourself, there's no way I'm missing that. There's no way I'm not showing up on time. There's no way I'm not showing up prepped and ready to go to that meeting. All right, we're able to do it when we have meetings with everybody else. I want to ask you if you notice that you're not able to honor those commitments that you make for yourself, why? Why have you put yourself at the bottom of your own list? We have to shift our mindset to believe that the commitments and the appointments that we make for ourselves, i.e., for self-care, for our doctor's appointments, our other appointments that we might have, that those are just as important as any other commitment that we put on our calendar. We want to relearn the skill, or even maybe initially learn the skill of honoring our word to ourselves. So that's number one. The second thing I want you to think about is this culture that we have perpetuated about being late not being a problem. Like, I'm late because I'm so busy. I'm late because I was handling something else over here. And it's become automatic for us to always be late or not really consider it a problem because we're just kind of rolling in and starting the next thing. Notice if this is part of what your life has become, where you're always consistently late. I tell my husband every time we're going out to dinner, it's kind of funny, but I'll be sitting downstairs ready to go, waiting on him. And then we leave and we're on the way to the restaurant. And it is almost always that down the road in the neighborhood say, hey, do you mind calling the restaurant and let them know we're going to be 5 minutes late or 10 minutes late? And I realized that by me doing so every single time, I was perpetuating this behavior of us always being late. And so I said to him, you know what? I'm not going to. This last break when we were home with the kids, I said, I'm not calling. And then I felt kind of like a jerk. And I was like, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but quite frankly, I'm tired of always having to call the restaurant on the way to the restaurant telling them that we're going to be late. So this time, actually, I did call and the phone wasn't working. They weren't picking up. And I said, you know what? It is what it is. We'll figure out when we get there if we can eat, but I'm not calling anymore if we're late. It made a little bit of a glitch, a little bump in the road for how we're going to get there. We got there, we were served, we were seated and served. But the point is, I put a boundary up there where I'm no longer going to perpetuate your being late, much less my being late. If it doesn't work out, we're going to deal with the consequences then, and hopefully it's going to change the behavior. Thirdly, in this list of commitments I want you to make to yourself is recognize how you handle your time as a reflection of how you honor your commitments. Because when we say we're going to do something, or when we commit to going to a dinner with friends, or when we commit to setting up an appointment for our kids or for ourselves, how often do you honor each of those commitments? Can you notice which ones you tend to cancel or be significantly late to? And then from there, after you've figured out which ones you tend to let go of, reflect on how important those commitments truly are for you. Are they really high on your priority list, but you're not taking care of yourself first? Or is it time to make a shift and say, you know what? These things may not be as high of a priority anymore as I once thought they were. And it's time for me to adjust and make some changes. So those are the 3 commitments that I want you to start with for yourself. So number 1, honoring your word to yourself by showing up on time, prepared, and organized. Number 2, stop perpetuating the culture of it's okay to be late. And number 3, recognize that how you handle your time is a reflection of how you honor your commitments. Okay, so now we're going to jump into living a more conscious and deliberate life. So what if I told you that planning ahead doesn't really thwart your creativity, but it actually creates more space for spontaneity? I want you to use your prefrontal cortex to plan your days, to allow you to decide in advance how you want to spend your time. This is going to take structure. It's going to take time. It's going to take extra effort, especially in the beginning. But ultimately, in the end, it actually creates more freedom and more time for you to do more things, spontaneously or not, as you wish. When you live with this intentionality and being deliberate, you're present in the moment because you're not worrying about all the other things or when you're going to get the other things done or what's next, et cetera, et cetera. Instead, you're intentional with your commitment in that moment and you're mindful about what you're doing. It also makes you mindful about what you continue to say yes to. And this is super important. And this is what I preach because a lot of women specifically have trouble saying no. We have trouble saying no because we're afraid of what people will think of us. We're afraid we won't be given the opportunity again. We're afraid that we're letting people down. There's so many reasons why we're afraid to say no. And a lot of it comes from guilt. A lot of it comes from shame. But I want to offer that when you actually say no to things in your life that are not a priority or bring you complete joy or are intentionally strategic or meaningful for you, you're actually allowing space in your life for more of the yeses for the things that are important to you. Martha Beck talks about the 8+, right? In a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being just things that you hate doing, don't want to do, 10 being things that you absolutely love. Can you make each day of your life filled with things that are 8+ or higher? This is how we make sure that our yeses align with our goals and our values and our interests. It helps us stay in intention with how we live each day. So what I want you to do this week, I already gave you a couple of to-dos, but I challenge you to take an honest look on how you're currently spending your time. Identify one area where you can start honoring your commitments to yourself or to others, but be more intentional with it. Where are some areas where you're not kind of following through, i.e., are you trying to work out and you say you're going to work out every day, or you're going to walk 3 times a week, but somehow or the other something comes up and cannibalizes that time? Identify that area where you're not upholding the commitments that you're wanting to make. And then we're going to start planning our days ahead of time, even if it's just for 10 minutes a day. So I want you to look at your next week. And if you're not putting self-care time into your week right now as it is, that's always the first step I have my clients do. I want you to pick a reasonable and achievable, doable time frame, i.e., 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 5 minutes, and build that in your calendar in a place where you're not going to get interrupted. It's not going to get cannibalized by something else, that you truly believe you're going to be able to do it. And I want you to honor that commitment you've made to yourself. I have gotten to the point where I've put in multiple events and ideas and things that I want to complete in my life each week. It started with one thing. My one thing was I'm going to meditate for 5 minutes each day. And that was hard getting that started. The point here with this work is we're going to start at minimum baseline. We're going to start with the smallest amount that we know we can achieve, because part of this work is rebuilding trust in yourself that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. Remember, awareness is the key to change. So once you see where you are, you can start to course out where you want to be. So I'm going to talk about this now over the next couple of weeks as we really dive into the next step of time management and how we can be more intentional with what we put into our lives, making our calendars work for us, not against us. Lastly, I want to talk about, just in summary, some of the things that I want you to think about doing for yourself. As we talked about already, we want to figure out where we're currently spending our time, what things we like of that, which things we don't, and then where we want to spend our time. I want you to really hone in on this last part. I want you to think about if you want to do the things that you have in your calendar and why. And you might realize that you may not. You're doing it out of obligation, or you're doing it because you've always done it that way and it's time to make a change. This is where we're really just kind of assessing and analyzing where we're at. The next thing I want you to do is make a list of the top 5 priorities of what you want to do. And this might be stuff that's already on your calendar that you're just not getting to. This might be some projects. I want you to just make a list of 5 top priorities. I want you to make a list of what you actually spent your time doing in the past week. Where did your time go? Were you scrolling on social media? Were you trying to figure out what's going to happen with TikTok? I know that happened over this weekend. Were you, kind of resting versus being lazy and procrastinating and not getting work done that you should have been getting done? This is where we get to reflect and kind of notice, how are our days passing? I want you to also notice, how often are you present in what you're doing rather than what you should be doing? i.e., when you're hanging out with your family or your kids, are you actually present for them in the moment, listening and engaging and interacting in a way where you're hearing them? Or are you multitasking, taking care of other things that you know need to get done and not really being present for them, what they're saying with their beings? Okay. For me, this is super important now because the kids are home for brief stints of time. And I've learned that those moments are gone in a flash because they have other obligations. They want to go be with their friends. They have work they have to do. They want to go watch football and be alone in their room for a while and have some time to themselves. So I make it a priority to be present with them as much as possible when they are home and available to me. And they call me out. I'm not perfect at this. There are definitely times when I'm multitasking, or I'm on the phone, or I'm not listening to a word they're saying, even though they think I might be because I'm trying to pretend I am. They call me out. We're not perfect. Nobody is perfect at this. Okay. It's just starting to build awareness and have a little bit more intentionality so you can catch yourself if you're not showing up the way you want to. When you plan on being intentional in your tasks in advance, the shoulds go away because it's already accounted for somewhere else in your calendar. So what do I mean by this? I also had a big aha moment when I realized how much my being present was affected by how much I was thinking about all of the other things that I had to do or get done. And so part of the joy of this calendaring system and the advanced kind of learnings that I did once I began the coaching programs was to realize where my brain space, energy, etc., was going to. And a lot of it was going to the shoulds. I need to, I have to. So if I can figure out a way instead of cataloging all that junk and putting it in my calendar, even if it's not immediately in the next moments or the next days, I know in my heart it's accounted for somewhere, and I don't have to spend the energy in my brain thinking about it anymore. And this freed me up to be more present in what exactly I was doing. Okay, so just a recap, I want you to come up with that priorities list, maybe make it 3 priorities rather than 5. And then within that, I want you to list out everything that you need to do to make that priority happen. All right, and then secondly, I want you to take a moment to list out 25 things that you want. I'm going to explain in the next episode what we're going to do with this, but it's very kind of interesting to see how this will play out. So spend a moment, list out 25 things that you want in your life. If you think you're done and you don't have 25, give it a couple of moments, maybe next day, and revisit it and keep going. 25 things that you want in your life. I'll have my lovely podcast producer put some of these links into the show notes with some of these worksheets so that you can do this on your own at home. And then we can jump back in next week to go into episode 2, where we talk about how we're going to get this life of intention in place. All right, my friends. I also want to just end the episode with letting you know that my next group cohort, Circle of 6 2.0, is starting the week of March 24th. I am super excited about this. I have been doing my group with my current Circle of 6 since January, and it has been absolutely amazing, building so much connection, just transforming our minds and how we're choosing to see things and think about things so that we can be our best selves. So this little community, I have decided to continue it and offer 2 cohorts beginning March 24th. So if you're interested in learning more, check it out on my website. You don't want to miss it. It has been a game changer for so many women, and I'm so excited about doing it and offering it again. Okay, my friends, I will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. Take care. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of From Pissed Off to Poised. Remember, transformation is a journey, not a destination. So enjoy the ride. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review From Pissed Off to Poised on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback supports my mission to get this podcast out to help other women physicians and professionals like you on their path to creating a more peaceful life with more intention and more joy. I enjoy reading every message I get with your input and feedback on my journey, so keep them coming. And if you have a friend who might enjoy the listen, please share this episode and share with them. Lastly, if you want to learn more about my coaching programs and course offerings, check out my website at www.thoughtworkmd.com. Feel free to reach out to me to learn more about investing in yourself through one-to-one coaching so you can start living the life you've always wanted. This show is for general educational and entertainment purposes only. Life coaching is not a substitute for therapy or medical treatment.